we doing, you gorgeous scallywags? Yeah, what a big, sexy audience we have tonight. Thank you all so much for coming out for this night, for stories and music and artwork. Perfect. I love it. So as Bill said, my name is Kryssi Jeaux Miller, and I have a story about family to share with you all tonight. And yeah, so let's dive in. The name of the story is called Family Expectations, which is a little bit of, you know, telling you what you can expect. We'll get some guitar in here as well. Sultry sounds. So, to get started, family expectations. Do we have any parents, grandchildren, grandparents out here who, you have expectations for the loved ones in your life? You want them to go to a good school, you want them to be safe, healthy, that whole thing. Has anyone been on the other side of that? Does anyone remember growing up and having some life dreams and ambitions that were maybe a little different than what your parents wanted for you? Yes, good. Okay, good. Yes, some noises from the darkness around me. That's always a good sign. Well, that is what my story is about today, ladies and gentlemen. Family expectations, and mine might be a little non-traditional, but that's why it's interesting and that's why I'm on the stage. So, to start off, I am the product of two public school teachers. Both of my parents were public school teachers. Yes! Can we get a huzzah for the public school teachers? Thank you. Thank you very much. It's really important. I had a great education. Consequently, my parents, they wanted the absolute best for me. They wanted me to be a straight-A student. They wanted me to attend an Ivy League university. They wanted me to become a doctor, or a lawyer, or when they found out I didn't really get along well with people, they decided they'd settle for veterinarian. Does anyone ever feel a little antisocial? We got any cat owners out there? Good, yeah, you're my people. Meow, meow. Okay. I speak your native tongue, I understand. Thank you for your enthusiasm. So those were my parents' plans for me. Now, my own plans for my life deviated a little bit from their plans. And recently, I found a drawing I had done when I was 5 years old from school when I was asked to depict what I wanted to be when I grew up. Now, there was a picture of me riding a black and white bucking bronco in a stadium filled with rodeo spectators. And this was the first red flag because I didn't grow up with horses. I'd never touched a horse in my life, so I don't know why that was the dream career at 5 years old, but we were obviously in trouble. Now, school progressed and the world became a lot wider around me. There were new opportunities. I could have any career I wanted. And so I set my sight on, well, in third grade I learned about the Pony Express, where young boys would ride horses across the U.S. as fast as they could to deliver mail to the good people of America. Unfortunately, I missed the application date by about 150 years. But I was not daunted, ladies and gentlemen. I set my sight on more realistic, still existing dream careers, such as racehorse jockey and, in middle school, pirate. So those were my plans. Those were still technically jobs. But anyway, so I attended a university. You may have heard of it, Colorado State University. Yes, thank you, go Aggies. And yes, she does sound effects too. And so I went to Colorado State. I decided I did have the grades, I will have you all know, to attend Harvard, but since the career I was most focused on was pirate and jockey, I decided to stay a little closer to home, spend a little less money. And so I went to Colorado State University with my two horses. I did finally get horses, and I moved up here with my truck and trailer, ready to do some rodeo. And while I was attending the university, a good friend of mine shared with me a YouTube video, and he said, "Kryssi, you have to see this video." I was intrigued. I watched the video. It was kind of dimly lit, rather blurry, but the video was of a man in a black hat with a black beard who claimed to be starting a jousting academy. A night school, if you will, night with a K at the beginning of it. And I was like, hot dog. That is for me. I had ruled out being a knight right at the get-go, because medieval ages, I thought it was done. But lo and behold, here was a chance. So I immediately packed up my old rodeo horse in a trailer and I drove out to the field where this man was teaching jousting lessons. And in case you all are wondering what modern day knights look like, I'll give you a brief description of the coach that I trained with for 2 years. Almost every day for 2 years I trained with this man. And he didn't have a suit of shining silver armor. It was spray painted black and held together mostly with Gorilla Tape. And he didn't live in a castle, he lived in a bus. However, he got me acquainted with all of the equipment, the helms, the shield, the lances, and I already had the horseback riding ability. And so off we went, and I started showing up for my first lessons. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you about my first ever jousting experience. So for those of you who are not very familiar necessarily with contemporary jousting, if you don't do it every day, let me go ahead and give you the Reader's Digest version. So you're on your horse with your shield on your left arm and your lance in your right hand, and you're wearing a steel helmet. So the shield is steel, the helmet is steel, because headshots, you would like a steel case around your head, just in case a lance goes stray and hits you in the noggin, rather than having your brains splatter everywhere. You've got a nice little helmet, which I brought so that you all believe me that this is actually my life. So this is my favorite helmet right now. This is what it looks like. And this one's actually pretty light, so that's why it's my favorite for bringing in new horses. I have pretty good visibility and it can kind of move my head around. Let me set it back down. So you start kind of like a duel. It's like a duel on horses with death sticks. So you and your opponent, 2 knights at a time, just 2 knights, you start on opposite ends of the field, facing away from each other, and this is the audience participation moment of the night. It was obvious that that was going to happen. So, because I want to share this experience with you, I want you all to leave feeling tonight like you have an idea what it feels like to be a knight, to joust. So, I showed you the helmet. So, in case you're curious what I'm feeling right now, my first time ever jousting in a field, on my horse, ready to go, wearing a steel helmet. So to give you an idea of what your line of vision is like before you charge at your opponent with your lance ready to go, if you could just humor me, if you don't mind. Nobody looks stupid if we all do it together. Take your 2 hands, put your fingertips together, and you're gonna make a gap in between, kind of like Cyclops from the X-Men. And you're a little generous there, yeah. It's like a 1/4 inch to like a 1/2 inch gap. Now put it in front of your face like a super stylish mask. Yes! That's it! So that's what you can see, and much cheaper than a real jousting helmet. So yeah, thank you all. Thank you for doing that. So that's what you can see. And in case you're wondering what it sounds like, so you are encased in a steel helm. And it's kind of like you're underwater, because you can't really hear anything, but all you can hear is the sound of your own breathing echoed back to you. And it sounds kind of like this. Which on a biological and instinctual level is kind of unnerving. And because all you hear is your own breathing. And so I'm ready, I'm lined up in my helmet, ready to go. My coach gives the word to come about. We bring our horses around to face each other. And there he is at the end of the field, my opponent, this tall man dressed all in black, black steel helm, black horsehair, plumes streaming out behind him on this great dark horse, and we just charge at each other across the arena. And then his lance hits my shield with a sound like a gunshot. Fireworks just explode in my brain because I've finally found it. This is it. This is the career I have always been looking for. I am training. Thank you. It is exciting. That's a big deal to find out what you want to do at 21 years old. And because here I was being trained by a man who did it as a job. It was possible. There were people out there who were doing this as a job, which meant that I could do it as a job. And so from that first hit, I was completely hooked. And let me tell you what happened after that. So so I was out there every morning. I would show up in this field every morning, bright and early with my horse, ready to learn whatever this man would teach me. And he taught me stunt falls off of a running horse, knife throwing, bull whipping, archery, and of course, jousting. Now, I'm a good kid. I love my parents very much, and you know, I went away to college, but I called home. I called home often to make sure that they knew I was all right. Unfortunately, I had to leave out a few details, like the fact that I was learning to joust, because I had a feeling that I knew how they would react to me telling them that I was hunting rabbits with a crossbow and camping out in a bus while I was training to become the next world champion jouster. And you know what? It wouldn't be wrong. It wouldn't be wrong for them to be worried because as a child, I spent a lot of time in the hospital as a combination of youthful invincibility and giant prey animals, otherwise known as horses, and my parents, being very loving and supportive, came to visit me very often in the hospital when I had broken ribs and spinal cord and concussions and septicemia and broken ligaments, you know, all of that good stuff. But I wasn't willing to give it up. I wasn't willing to have this thing taken away from me because I knew that my parents would say, no, absolutely not. We're taking your horses. We're excommunicating you from the family. So I was like, well, just put on the back burner. I'll mention it at Thanksgiving, something like that. And so a year went by and I trained with this man and learned everything he could teach me. And in case you're curious kind of where jouster money came from, what we would do, I learned a lot and then I started training people. And our biggest population of students, there is a fairly decent-sized population of testosterone-driven, adrenaline junkie, wealthy yuppie guys who would fly in from around the country. And that was our shtick, is they would stay with us for a weekend and we would teach them how to joust. These were guys who had never touched a horse before in their life, but it was my job to prop them up on the horse, get them facing in the right direction, and then my coach and I would joust them for 48 hours. And that is how he made his paycheck. That is how he afforded the bus. So, yes, indeed. A year went by, and a tournament was on the horizon. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, one of the largest jousting tournaments in the world right now is held annually in Estes Park, Colorado, just 45 minutes up the road. It was actually last weekend, and yes, I did go, and I did compete with my team because I'm still doing it because I love it more than anything in the world. And I was ready, you know, I was green. I'd never met another jouster other than my coach, but I was ready to throw my hat in the ring and test my skills against the others. But I did decide that it was finally time to tell my parents and to invite them to come watch me joust if they wanted to. And so I was stuck with the dilemma of how do I phrase, "Hi, Mom and Dad, it's your daughter. I have spent the last year of my life learning to joust with a madman in a field in eastern Colorado, and I'm now at a tournament about to face off against 30 or so 300-pound Canadians and MMA fighters, etc., 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 and somehow make that sound super safe and boring and nonchalant. Regardless of whether or not I succeeded, the festival came. The festival was upon us, and I was there, and I was there with my coach's horse, helmet, and shield. He unfortunately could not come because, being a very passionate man, he is permanently banned from this particular tournament, supposedly for threatening a judge or something like that. So you have an idea. This is my life, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, I've got a lot of stories that hopefully I can share with you one day, but Reader's Digest version. So I showed up with no idea what to expect, but a horse and a shield and ready to rock. And so we lined up, you know, it was a tournament style, so like a tier, you know, everyone getting knocked out until you get to the final place, and I lost. I lost my first match. It was a very high-scoring match. I lost by just 1 point to a very talented jouster. However, luckily for me, there was an odd number of jousters in the tournament. So the highest scoring loser got to go get a second chance and get into the second bracket, which was me. And yes, thank you. That's how I felt as well. And yeah, so I found myself going on. And you know what? I won the next match. And I won the match after that. And I won the match after that. And I won the match after that. There were 27 of us this year, so it was a lot of matches. And finally, you're not very aware in a helmet, but I found myself in the list, ready to go, and sweating, breathing in my own ear, and they're like, hey, you're up for first and second place. Let's do this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And this is a big festival that I'm talking about. It's a 3-day festival. This is a jousting tournament each day. And this was a Saturday. Saturday's always the biggest day. We're talking standing room only. Crowds on their feet, cheering and screaming, spilling beer all over each other, the whole bit. And I'm sitting there breathing into my own helmet, totally freaking out, when I hear familiar cheering from the audience. Now, the love of the family. I look over, I turn my head over, and there is my mom and dad sitting in the front row with a mixed expression of, oh my God, we're going to watch our 100-pound daughter be killed, but also pride, because I was doing really well. And that came across. They were enthusiastic. They were freaked out, but they were super enthusiastic. And, ladies and gentlemen, I won the match. Thank you. Yes. I won. I won first place. I won the whole tournament. I'm the first woman to do so in this tournament. Yes! Thank you. And it was especially great because that was the first time that my parents ever saw me joust. And and the most magical part about it is our relationship completely changed after that, because they did. I lucked out. Like, let's be honest, between a coincidence of event, not the winning, because I worked really hard for that, but the fact that that was the day they chose to show up, and that was the first time they saw it, and my crazy coach couldn't be there. So all of these things combined, and what's really magical about it is they did. So they accepted it after that, and here we are, five years later, and they took it in stride. So I know I still scare them to death, but they keep it together a lot better now for me, for my sake. And they took it in stride when I called 5 years later to tell them I had started my own jousting company. And thank you. And they took it in stride when I called to tell them I had purchased my newest jousting horse, $125 to the government for an unbroke Mustang, because that's about what I could afford. And they took that all in stride, and what was most satisfying was no longer did I feel like I was being torn in half, by my parents' dreams and the pressure of, being a doctor, having financial security and a home, those weird things that you want for their kids, and my own dreams of living a life of reckless debauchery. And because we found a middle ground. My parents got what they wanted, in that I am happy and successful and safe, and I got my life of adventure and living a life that no one's ever lived before, and getting to live, dangerously and excitingly, and we get all of that now. And consequently, because we both accepted my dreams, and we've both come to a nice, safe, common ground, consequently, life now is very good. Thank you all so very much.
Kryssi Jeaux Miller. Yeah. Want to hear her breathe?
This is actually a replica. Have any of you seen A Knight's Tale? Yeah, so this is a replica of William's helmet. I just painted it gold and got hit in the head a few times. This is it. And you lock it up.
Kryssi Jeaux Miller.